What's good everyone on YouTube? It's me again, back with another video, and today we're going to be doing a slightly different video format. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to structure this, so if you see a lot of weird jump cuts and things like that, that's probably why, because I'm just sort of going off as we go along. But I decided I wanted to try and do these videos where I would wear a shoe for a certain amount of time and then come back to you guys, explain what has changed about the shoe, the pros and the cons of the shoe, and my overall thoughts after wearing a shoe for a certain period of time. And what shoe would be more appropriate to start this series off with than one of the most hyped collabs to come out in like the past, I'd say, week and a half actually. The Peaceminusone Air Force Ones. So for those who don't know, the main feature of this particular shoe is the whole paint chipping on the entire upper of the shoe. And something interesting about the paint chipping, it actually happens a lot quicker than you think it would, because I've been wearing this shoe now for pretty much a week straight. I wore it going out walking pretty much. I even wore it to dance practice and even to a dance event. And I've scraped the shoe up, I've definitely chipped a lot of the paint off, and I just wanted to show you guys what the shoes look like now after a week of wear. So yeah, let's get into what has changed about this shoe after a week of wear. So now in my hand I've got my left shoe, and as you can probably see, it's quite creased in the toe box. And there is a lot of paint chipping going on. So if you guys watch my original review, you remember this was almost like a triple black, or at least the upper was completely black. But now we've just got all these graffiti prints sort of like bleeding through from all the paint chipping. And to be 100% honest, the paint chipping happened really quickly. It was something that happened after even the first day of wear. So I'll be showing B-roll that I took every time I wore the shoe pretty much, where yeah, pretty much every day there would be new pieces of paint flaking off the shoe, and it's left a pretty interesting sort of aesthetic going on the entire upper, I would say. Now, aside from the changes from the upper as well, the other big noticeable thing about wearing this for a week is the outsole. So actually, surprisingly enough, a lot of the black paint that was on the outsole originally has kind of come off. And on the toe and on the heel, we've already got the stars sort of wearing away. But that's to be expected when you wear this shoe. Oh yeah, if you're wondering, that actually is a piece of paint that just chipped off as I was switching between the shoes, because the paint really does come off super easily. And if you're curious, this is what the right shoe looks like right now. So sort of the same sort of toe box area that's been sort of chipping away. It pretty much chips away where there's high stress. So obviously around like the toe box, as well as the sizes of the shoe, as well as for me at least, around the ankle portion, I've got some cracking here. Well, that probably has to do with some of the dancing I do. A lot of like ankle bending and things like that. So it probably causes this ankle area to go under a lot of stress, which has resulted in some paint chipping as well. But same thing, we've got the paint chipping around the toe, as well as paint being removed from the outsole from the wear. Now it's time for me to get into the pros of this particular shoe. The first pro, for me at least, is that the sort of paint feature, or at least the changing feature, is actually immediately noticeable. It's not something like the LA to Chicago Jordan 1s, or even some of the Old Lance Mountain Jordans, where the paint was so well bonded to the shoe that in order for you to actually remove the paint, you'd either have to actually scratch the leather or use some sort of paint remover to get some sort of weird effect going. With this shoe, as soon as you start wearing it, the paint layer on it, it's almost like they put the paint layer on and didn't seal it at all, which I think has resulted in a really interesting aesthetic where the paint actually flakes off and cracks where there's high stress points. And it's left this really interesting sort of aesthetic where you've got like this sort of like cracking details with this graffiti print underneath. So aesthetically, I actually think the paint chipping is one of the best things about this shoe. My second pro for this shoe is actually the silhouette itself. The Air Force One is pretty much one of the most iconic and timeless shoes that exists today. And no matter what iteration you get, like Air Force Ones always have a certain amount of respect amongst the sneaker community. And you know, having this collaboration with Peaceminusone on a iconic silhouette such as this It's kind of like a match made in heaven, to be honest. So honestly, that would probably be my second pro to this shoe. My third and final pro, you know, kind of combining the paint chipping and the iconic silhouette. This is just a good looking shoe. The changes they've made have really elevated the Air Force 1 to a new level in my opinion, with the fat laces, the nice little daisy, the lace decorations, although I'm going to mention that in my cons, and this paint chipping has really made this shoe something very special and something that is very recognizable on the streets. I actually had someone approach me on the streets, pretty much just going, "Oh my god, you're wearing those shoes." So the look of the shoe honestly is probably the best thing about this shoe. And with that, we now go on to the cons of this shoe. And the first con is that the leather is actually incredibly stiff. So at least on my left foot, I've actually got some bruising on my left toe because of the way the leather sort of like chops down on my foot. It definitely has the toe guillotine effect. So even after a week of wear, it's still a little bit uncomfortable in that regard. So I would say if you're really gonna want to get the most out of this shit, you're gonna have to stick out some of these sort of harsh days with this like sort of harsh leather. So that would be my first con for this shoe, this really stiff leather. My second con for this shoe is that the lace decorations, while they're really nice, depending on where you place them on the shoe, they actually have a really high tendency to unscrew themselves. So they're these metal sort of screws, and depending on where you put them on the sort of lace holes themselves, the way the leather will bend and the way the tongue will rub against the lace hole decorations, it actually caused, at least for myself, putting it at the bottom, it caused the lace decorations to undo themselves. And as I mentioned earlier, I lost one of them for about like 5 minutes and I had to backtrack to find it. And just that added stress of like lace decorations possibly falling off, I just don't think, I personally myself have now taken them off and just left them on my desk as sort of decoration. But that would be my second con, sort of loose lace decorations. My third con for this shoe is that overall, they're not exactly the most comfortable shoe. Now, this is like an obvious point because this shoe is a really old silhouette from the 80s and you can't really compare it to technology of today. But honestly, like, it has to be mentioned that like, even though Air Force Ones have always been worn by like multiple people and like celebrities and influencers, it's not exactly a comfortable shoe. Yes, it gets the job done. It's not offensive, but it's definitely not anything special. So comfort would be my sort of last con for this shoe because the midsole's quite stiff and it's also quite chunky. I've never had a problem with the weight of Air Force Ones, but some people have told me they're a bit too heavy for their liking. But, I just burped. That is my final con for this shoe. 3 pros and 3 cons, really forced it out there. And with that, we've come to the end of another video. So, I know this seems like a little bit of a messy thing because I don't really do a format like this that often. I may start refining it and getting better at it the more I do these videos. Let me know in the comments down below if this is a video idea you're interested in for future releases. And also, let me know what your favorite aspect of this shoe is. And if you actually own this shoe, let me know what's your favorite thing and what's your least favorite thing about this shoe. So yeah, like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video, and if you're into the sneaker content and that sort of thing, consider subscribing to the channel. So with that, I'm gonna sign off and I'll catch you guys in another video.